Our world continues to change and push us in ways we have not been challenged before. On this show, we talk about these challenges, how to be aware of them, face them, and overcome them in your life. This is David Waldas, creator of the Aligned Living System.
And I'm Nick Musica, Aligned Living Coach. Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast.
Welcome to the Aligned Living System podcast. This is David Waldas here with Nick Musica. Our topic today is politics and ideology. Feels like a safe bet, right?
That seems like an easy one.
So, sort of, that's our topic. Really, our topic is consciousness. And so, it's so interesting, right? You talk to people are so charged about politics right now, no matter what their belief system is, what side they're on. There's all this stuff going on around the world. There's all this stuff going on in the US. And, it's so interesting to me when people ask me about politics and what I think, and basically, it often comes from a perspective of, are we going to be okay? Because I think things have gotten so polarized that both sides believe that if the other side wins out, we're not going to be okay. And to me, it's really interesting, and I thought this would be a fun topic today because it came up in a session today. Fun topic. Trust me, we're getting there. It's going to be fun. Is that our sense of what's happening and are we going to be okay? How big of a deal politics are, how much we get swayed by watching a debate or a hot button item topic. It really has a lot to do with consciousness. And so really what I'm saying is that when we are grounded into just a third dimensional reality, right, which is the majority of the population, and we see it, it's like if you watch the news and you believe that that's the whole reality, if you're listening to a debate and you believe that that's the whole reality, if you're pulled into these experiences and you don't see outside of them, really what that means is that you're locked in on a third dimensional reality. And so again, let me explain what that means and why this is relevant. So when we're in that state of consciousness, meaning that we're five sensory, we aren't having a greater sense of self beyond what's happening in those five senses. We're not in a expanded state of consciousness. Everything that we're doing is actually happening inside a bubble of five sensory experience. And the way that we receive information, the way that we share information, the way that our brain works. So our brain's always processing this from am I okay, am I not okay place. It's from a very root place of, survival. And when we're in that bubble, we can be drawn into an even smaller circle by, something that gets threatened in our world, that basically is exactly what politicians do now. They say, here are the things that are going to trigger people the most, and we're going to talk about them, and we're going to create polarity about them. And you may look back and, there's an amnesic element to being, in that third dimensional reality, because if you look back and see, some of these politicians, the position they came from, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years, whatever, like it may be the polarity of it. It may be completely different, but they're changing based on basically grabbing the ring in the nose of humanity and dragging people around. That's what the news does too. And so when we're in that limited place of interpreting things through our five senses, our brain hones in on the what's wrong and am I okay, am I not okay? Are we gonna survive this basically? And it creates a very limited thinking. And, it makes us very susceptible to being controlled, to going along with the agenda that's being presented to us. But the moment that people pop into a higher state of consciousness, into a sense of intuitive knowing, into a sense of expansion of self, there's something else that happens. And, obviously this is what we do with Aligned Living, is we go into this internal space where we're having an experience beyond our third dimensional reality, beyond the five senses. And then we invite in that experience that we're looking at into this expanded space with us, into this expanded state. And when we do that, it's just part of what we're experiencing. And so maybe we're watching a debate, say, and we stay in an expanded state of consciousness rather than getting sucked into the drama of it. We're seeing that through the lens of it's just a small part of what's happening. If we don't stay in the higher consciousness, we get sucked in and our whole world shrinks down into whatever it is that they're talking about, whatever the hot button items are, and that feeling of safe and unsafe. And so how did that land, Nick? I'm curious, it's to me in a way it's a simple concept, yet maybe it's a little bit hard to get the land to make sense. So how'd that land for you?
It's definitely charged. Um,
Yeah, great.
yeah, I mean, like it's hard to, and it's a little, it's a little like imagine yourself being surrounded by water and you feel like you're drowning, but you're not, and all you have to do is kick up a few feet and you're at the surface, right? But
Mhm.
when you're in the drowning, there's absolutely 100% no mistaking that you're drowning unless you simply break away from that situation, which like that's how it's sort of like it's all 100% real until it's not. That's what I kept hearing you
Yeah,
say,
yeah, absolutely.
right? But if that's the only thing that I know and I subscribe to one party or another, like I'm just charged I'm waiting to get riled up again. I'm like
Mhm.
I pre-rile,
Yeah.
right? As I'm putting on network 123, whatever it
Mhm.
is.
And that's what they all do is basically convince you that there's something very, very wrong and
Yeah.
you're under threat. It was interesting not too long ago when I was at my parents' house visiting. I noticed the pace at which the newscasters talk now. And I don't remember it being like that. It's like there's this pace that goes along that makes you feel like things are pushing very quickly and there's an urgency to it that makes you feel very uncomfortable, very on edge, and it doesn't stop. And they tend to push like that the whole broadcast. And I was like, oh my God, like all the newscasters are doing this now. They're keeping this pace of urgency of there's something wrong, and it's an anxiety inducing pace and tone. I mean, could you feel that even just when I was doing that for a second of like it just wants to grab a hold of you and drag you down a hallway and bring you into an anxious state of awareness.
Yeah, I was reflecting on what does that sound like when you were talking about what it does sound like. Um, yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah, there's a certain amount of resubscribing every time it goes on. Right? It's a very willing thing
Mhm.
on the media's part, and that's how you keep listenership. And it
Mhm.
has to sound important, right? Everything they say sounds important. It's
Yeah,
all
you can't look away. You can't walk away from this because disaster is about to strike and you might miss it.
right. I mean, this is why it repeats. It's like the weather, right? Like the weather just doesn't change that much.
No, no.
But
There's a
the
whole
what
weather channel.
there's a whole weather channel, and if you watch it for an hour, you've seen the same programming 5 times.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not that different than what you're talking about.
yeah. Or you could go on your phone and see the weather wherever you want to see it in the world in 10 seconds, right? Or you could watch it like how does that still exist?
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just repeats, and then it sort of just becomes, oh, what's that? What's that show? It's a terrible zombie show. It's a mediocre zombie
Walking
show.
Dead.
Different with the mushrooms that make you a zombie.
I haven't seen it.
I forget the name. Someone will go, "This is the name." Yeah, that's it. But it's a show where the mushrooms just take over.
Mhm.
Um, and this is sort of the same thing. Like it just infiltrates, and then and then it's there.
Yeah, yeah. And so that whole piece of like, of course we're so susceptible to it. It's like they know how brain chemistry works. They know how our brains work. And so it's harnessed all the time now
Yeah,
to create an outcome. And it's funny when people ask me like, are you worried about this? Or, what did you think of the debate? What did you think? I'm like, it was funny actually the other day, somebody said, what did you think of the debate? I'm like, "Oh, I didn't watch it." And they're like, well, what? You gotta watch it. You gotta. I'm like, I really don't. Actually,
mm.
there's no part of me that needs to at all. And they're like, and I recognize where they're coming from because I used to think the same thing of like personal responsibility. Like, don't you feel responsible for our world? You have a vote, you have, and sure, you know, like I'll probably still vote. Of course, I live in California now, so maybe there's not much point because it's such a decided state. And you know, this piece of like, well, why don't I want to get involved in that? And to me, the answer isn't about conversation. It's not about knowing what's happening. It's not about convincing anybody of anything. It's about consciousness. And the moment that we cross a threshold where we have a higher intuitive access, where we're not stuck inside the bubble that we're being led around by the ring in our noses with, we become far less susceptible to the stories. We become far less interested in the drama and the feeling that the sky is falling, and then we get to think for ourselves. And so to me, what is my work? My work is I help people move into a higher state of consciousness. And I'd much rather be on a call helping somebody move into a higher state of consciousness than be drawn into a lower state of consciousness by watching the news or by watching the debate or whatever it is that's happening, because it's all drawn into this five sensory experience where we are so susceptible to the what's wrong, and the world will not change from that place. What we talk about, how history repeats itself. It's all part of that amnesic episode where we just go through these cycles that repeat over and over again. Like, if we had the ability to think clearly, like, we wouldn't be repeating them. We would be breaking out and going, oh, this is where it went wrong last time. I'm going to do something this time, different this time. But we're just led in these circles. And so when we stay outside of that bubble, stay in an awareness that's not drawn into that five sensory reality, we don't get drawn in circles anymore.
You didn't use these words, but what I'm hearing is manipulation, persuasion, and willingly being manipulated, right? Because I'm halfway there.
Leading it, like going and telling everybody else. Do you realize what's happening? Did you see this? Do you know what's going on?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you were talking, I was like, McDonald's, like, right? It's such a good poster boy for bad things. It
It
is,
really is. It's so funny. Like,
right?
I have such a judgment about McDonald's. It was funny. I was joking the other day. I was driving by and I was pulling up on a light, and the light was like there was an opening there and people were trying to pull out of McDonald's.
Uh-huh.
And so like I could easily leave a gap. I go, should I cover the gap just to punish him for going to McDonald's?
Like,
I
what'd you
didn't.
do?
I let him out, but it was just like this internal, like, it's funny that came up for me. I think I should punish them for going to McDonald's and just not let them out.
I think that's fair.
But
We
food
have a visitor.
absolutely pulls us into that state of consciousness. There's another like basically when we eat shit, like, we're trapped in a five sensory reality. When we take medicine, the moment we put these chemicals into our system, we lose that intuitive access and we become in a five sensory experience. And that's
What's
just what
you know,
happens.
and when you were talking about, well, why didn't you watch it? And I remember thinking, this was years ago, and I was having the same conversation with a guy. It's like, what'd you think about the thing, or are you going to watch? And I was like, I can't. I get mad, and I don't like to feel that way, so I just don't. Well, you better vote. I vote. I flip the switch, but I don't
Yep.
need to pay attention for 12 months and hear all the nonsense and the slinging of garbage back and forth to decide what I'm going to vote. Like, it's just not. I already chose. I already
Yeah.
chose. I know enough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to hear 10 more reasons why they're shitty and I'm good, or what. And I don't like either side. I vote for one, but I don't like them. It's terrible.
And, and
Uh,
and I think it's evidence too. Like, when you look at the people that are put forward to lead the United States, like, really, this is the best of what we have. It's not the
yeah.
best of what we have. It's like the perfect person to engulf us in the muck.
Yes. Yeah. So going back to the McDonald's thing, right? Like, if this is all about what you let into your system,
Yeah.
right? Um, food, drugs, define drugs any way you want. Uh, conversations, like, they all have an impact. There's a resonance to each and every one of those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you consider your body, soul, consciousness, whatever aspect of self you want to highlight as part of a system where each and every one of these things impacts it, then like when was the last time you picked up a book that was about fucking anger? Like, right? And the back cover is just like, this book promises delivery being pissed off as shit every time you read it. Like, yeah. Like,
Sign me up.
right? Like how many pages? 100. They should have written 200 pages on this. I want to be angry for 200 pages. Um, like why would you read that intentionally?
Yeah. Do you remember the duck food
Yeah, yeah,
section of the 10-week program? So
yeah.
basically when we're, the basics of aligned living, when we're going through it, one of the concepts we talk about is based on the story of the ugly duckling, right? Where, there's this ugly duckling that's basically trying to be part of this duck family and they just don't fit in, nothing goes right. And then eventually they realize they're the swan, right? And they're like, oh, I'm a swan, not a duck. And so I make a really ugly duck, but I make a beautiful swan. But when we try to be something that we're not, and then it creates this analogy of duck food. And if you're a swan, you're not going to eat duck food. So what is duck food? Duck food is everything that we're talking about here. It's,
Mm-hmm.
what you're consuming, whether it's what you're watching, what the conversations you have, who you're around, what you're actually literally eating. And when you're eating stuff that's made for a third dimensional density, for a five sensory reality, and you're not made to be that, like it just throws you off completely because you're so much more sensitive, you're so much more empathic, and like your nervous system just can't eat duck food.
Yeah.
It's funny. I took a picture of, there's some great road riding here where I live in California now, and I was riding up on this road it's closed now, so it's just open to bikes. And at the very top of the climb, there's a barrier across it, and somebody spray painted a picture of a bunch of ducks, and it says, "Don't feed the ducks." I took a picture of it. I forgot to send it to you, but maybe that's the name of our podcast is "Don't Feed the Ducks."
Don't feed the ducks.
Well, I mean, they're already fed. Like, don't eat the duck food.
Right. Right, right, right. Yeah. It's just so weird. Like I remember laughing at the phrase "my body is a temple." Like I remember just laughing at it as I ate some garbage.
Some
Uh,
McDonald's.
yeah, or
No,
worse.
you're Jersey Mike's because McDonald's is garbage, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm a Burger King type of guy. Um, just being like whatever, and
Yeah.
Whopper or whatever it was. Um, but the more that I've done this type of work, the more I've realized, maybe it is.
Hmm.
Maybe you should treat it that way.
Yeah.
And by maybe I mean, yeah, it is. And then that expands to all the other things, all the things we're consuming, whatever it is we're putting into this thing called the body.
Yeah.
All the thoughts that come in, all the food that comes in, all the drink that comes in, all the
Hmm.
situations that we're in.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh yeah. And like if you're to think about it as like there's one direction to go, right? You can sort of falter if north is the direction. You can a little bit of east, a little bit west, right? You can get off course a bit.
Yeah. It's not about being so strict.
Yeah, but you're always going north,
Hmm.
right? Like you're always going due north-ish. But when these other things come in that are not in residence, right? Dramatic situations, anger,
Hmm.
you know, all those feelings.
Yeah.
McDonald's reacting to maybe they'll sponsor us. I don't know. Um,
And maybe we could end up in a Happy Meal.
this episode sponsored by does that really say McDonald's? Yeah, it does. Oh, McDonald's. Um, like all those things you put into your body, like you're not going north anymore. You're going in the opposite direction.
Puts you inside a little bubble where you don't have a
Yeah.
sense of what you really want.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And
to
then you
so to
step out around.
start to shake off the things that pull you back into the opposite direction. I think it's really important. I mean, we're
Yes,
using
extremely
politics because
important.
it's so polarizing and 50% of the people over here and 50% of the people over there. And how can you escape this?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard.
It's how our system is set up. It's just a trap to pull you into the bubble.
Yeah.
And to me, why I'm not that worried about it is because the consciousness is shifting. Like there's an energy hitting the planet right now. It's affecting all of us. Obviously, that's why you're here listening, is that you're having some sort of awakening. You're having a greater sense of reality. And that sense of like, we don't, like the solution is is consciousness, not getting led around by angry reports and fear and all those things. And the more you get drawn into that, I mean, it's all of our consumables are
Mm.
designed to put us in that bubble.
A fucking printer, man. It's designed to not to get cartridges over and over and over again, and then it's designed to break.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it just is. Remember the dot matrix? That thing worked like a champ. And now,
Forever. Yeah.
no, until they're like, wait a minute, no one's buying another printer. We keep on selling a
Yeah.
whole lot of
TVs,
paper.
appliances, everything lasted
All of it.
forever. Yeah.
All of
Now
it.
it's
Right.
made, intentionally obsolete or intentionally break.
Yeah, which keeps you then. I mean, there's a whole conversation, right? Like then we get into the politics conversation and taxes and then my job and my thing and all the systems that support this southern direction, shall we call it.
Now you're gonna upset people with that.
Mm, I've been upset by it, right? Yeah. Sometimes
Yeah.
I still do.
And I think it really is that simple. I often use that example of like the 5 sensory reality. That's like having a Corolla, you just drive it around, change the oil, change the brakes once in a while. Like that's it. It doesn't take any maintenance, but you're just having this experience.
Hmm.
And when you're moving into a higher reality or higher consciousness, now it's like a Ferrari. Like you can't just change the oil and the brake pads on a Ferrari and expect it to run well. It constantly needs to be tuned and driven well and taken care of and kept in the garage and all the things. And so when you think about that, my body's my temple thing, and like I scoffed at it as well, right? As I ate a big greasy cheeseburger, and
Yeah.
that was it. And it's not that I have to like, so I can actually eat beef again for the first time, and that's a whole nother episode. But it is this sense of what does my body need and how am I taking care of it, and am I drawn into the bubble, and we know we're in the bubble when we're just thinking the same as the people next to us. And generally we're out of the bubble when we're thinking the opposite, or something very different than that. And I think that really is because such a, 80% of the population's in that bubble. And so
Hmm.
if we're thinking the same as the people that are around us, unless
Hmm.
we've created a very select group around us,
Hmm.
it's a really clear indicator that like, oh, that's a lot of duck food and I've been eating it and now it's my reality. And so I need to start taking better care of myself so that I can move outside of that,
Yeah.
gain a
Yeah.
greater clarity, because otherwise I'm just following along.
Yeah. Yeah. And if there's no group to join, maybe the task is to create one.
Yeah. We've got a group.
That's true. It's true. And we just came back from a group.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. We were just at a Bo Eason event too, which was
Hmm.
so refreshing to be around all these people that are just thinking from that mindset of, how can they have a positive impact on the world and bring their gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. I was describing that to someone earlier today. I'm like, it's really hard to describe. It's just like this little universe that you're in for 2 or 4 days straight, where everyone's focused on being the best that they can possibly be, and nothing else matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're released into the wild, and like you're responsible for carrying
The
that with you.
re-entry.
Yeah, like, yeah. I mean, you're responsible for carrying that in the face of everything else that is not that.
Yeah. And being around that level of commitment to excellence and then coming back out, it's like, wow, like mediocrity. Like
Holy moly!
that is just what people are seeking. And again, that's just part of the duck food. Like
Yeah.
I don't feel like bring something powerful and special and impactful because,
Mhm.
or people do it from an egoic perspective. But, and again, it's not about being a good person or a bad person. It's about what happens when you're in the bubble. And when you're in that
Mhm.
bubble, like there's just a certain things that you're drawn to, certain ways you behave, certain things that inspire you. And it's always these loops,
Yeah.
that ultimately are not fulfilling.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked with a guy a while back who he gave me some advice, like, and it was some type of situation around like people being emotional and stuck in, like, the details of a conversation that were charged. And his response was, well, ask them what the result they're going for is.
Yeah. Yeah. What are
That
you hoping
tends,
to create with this?
yeah, yeah, yeah. What are you hoping to accomplish here?
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to sometimes not, get people to sort of step out of that feeling.
Mhm.
And you may have to ask once or twice.
Yeah, and the follow-up question is, is how's that going, right? Are
That's
you
right.
having success creating what
Yeah.
with your
Yeah.
plan?
Right. Yeah. How's that working out for you?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah. Tends to uh, either do one of two things from my experience. It either changes the conversation, the dynamics, or someone steps into that dynamic just for a moment and then whiplashes back where they
Or they
were.
double down on
It's
resistance
one of
and
the two.
or
Yeah, it's
change
one of
the
the
topic.
two. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
it's one of my favorite coaching questions. How's that working out for you? When people tell you their
Mm-hmm.
story about how they got it all figured out and how's that working
Mm-hmm.
out? What's that
Yeah.
creating?
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Haven't talked to this person forever, and that person left, and my dog hates me. And yeah. Right. What?
Cool,
But
we got a
yeah.
good starting point. Awesome.
Yeah. But I got the house cleaned today. That's cool. Okay. Sounds meaningful.
Nice. Yeah, well, interesting conversation. It is, it's funny how upset people get that watch news regularly or are so drawn into the like, don't you understand this is democracy's, at risk here? Like, is it? Is it? Um, or are we just getting caught up and led around in circles? And when we can stay in a bigger place and invite that into our world instead of getting invited into the bubble, that little world, um, it's a whole different experience. And
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it's funny. I remember when I was a teacher, and people were like, in my neighborhood, for some reason, there was always people knocking on the door asking for donations, and I'm like, I'm a teacher. I donate all the time. I get paid nothing and I work all like nonstop. So that is my donation. And it's funny, I kind of feel that way with my work now too. It's like I don't need to worry about politics. Like I'm doing my part by shifting, and help people shift their consciousness. And to me, like it's just so obviously where things are going to shift from. I remember I used to teach with this guy, and he's like, it's funny. He'd been teaching for 30 years in high school, and he's like, we just bust our asses and just keep working with these kids, trying to get them to grow up and be mature and get a sense of themselves and responsibility. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, God, it just keeps not working. It keeps not working. It keeps not working. And then magically, when they turn 18, all of a sudden they start to grow up and have different sense of what's important. And he's like, I often wonder, like, what if we just kind of hung out and waited for him to turn 18 and have that shift? Like, are we really doing anything by just pushing on them before they're ready to have any sense of responsibility? Because he's like, I've been doing this for I don't know how many years, and like that is the
Same
thing.
thing.
It's like no results, no results, no results, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, God, it finally paid off. Did it, or did they just mature into this place where now they have a different perspective?
So what did he say?
I mean, that was his kind of joke. He's like, I think we're
Uh,
just spinning our wheels,
mm,
and then miraculously, when they're ready, they start to act more like an adult or start to be able to see beyond their own little microcosm.
yeah. Yeah.
And, I think that humanity's like that as well. Like, what do we do? Like, well, let's just keep working on our consciousness. And the more we raise our consciousness, the more it puts pressure on other people. There's like a pull for them to pop out of the little bubble and see it themselves. And so, like, if we go and work on that density, all we're doing is creating a place where the bubble becomes stronger and stronger. But if we stay on the outside of it and just keep doing our work and inviting more and more people to do their work, um, that to me is just such an obvious solution. And the rest of it's just engaging the duck food, and
Seems like a
it doesn't do anything.
way better use of time.
Yeah.
Like there's something you can do there. And the other
Yeah.
one, vote. I'm gonna go vote. I hope everyone
Yeah. Yeah.
votes.
Sure.
I hope you
Do
vote,
that
David. I
too.
don't know about California. It could go one way or the other. Who knows? Who knows? But like, but that's 100% the control I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unless I want to dive into that system and and
Well,
do
I
something
think you have a
else.
lot of control by holding a higher consciousness because it helps other people pop out
Totally.
of that limited thinking and
Yeah,
being less susceptible to being drawn into the drama and
that's it.
food and playing along.
Yeah. So
Yeah. And
I'd rather not eat the McDonald's, not consume the things, and
yeah.
hold myself to a standard that I find challenging and keep on doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to make the distinction too that this is different than just going, oh, I'm just going to be in this blissed out meditative state. And, like that's going to solve everything. That's not what we're talking about at all. Like this is very pragmatic, grounded, solid, like engaging with the world, engaging with people, creating, productive things. It's not just sitting around meditating. And, like, I think that was, when I looked at a lot of people that were, spiritual and just not wanting to engage in the world because they just wanted to kind of create a blissed out space for themselves and surround themselves by people that also felt good and create a little kind of imaginary land. It's not really imaginary. I mean, it's an energetic place, where people are having experience, and that's great. But we also, I think we do have a responsibility to have an impact on this world by engaging in it, which is very different than finding a few people to hang out with and
That's right.
in sort of microcosm of high frequency that isn't hitting the rest of the world.
Yeah. Doing business with purpose, not
Yeah.
just for the money. And
Yeah.
make a lot of money. Also do it with purpose.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Awesome, man. Well, good conversation. Always interesting. So politics and what was the other part of it?
McDonald's,
Politics and
I think.
ideology.
Yes, that was it. It wasn't McDonald's. It was ideology.
Yeah, like there's a duck food potential.
Yeah. McDonald's should just change their menu to various types of duck food. Maybe that.
It's all duck food.
It's all duck food.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening. Have a great week. And we'd love to hear your thoughts as always. So respond, comment. We'd love to hear from you. Have a great week. We hope you enjoyed listening to today's podcast. And if you did, please subscribe so you can catch the next episode. If you want to learn more about the Aligned Living System and how it could support you in your life, check out davidwaldas.com.